G'day folks, Chris McLean back with yet another episode. And in the studio today, I've got Miles from Hype Group. And they're a product development and marketing comms firm. Product wellness, fitness, and sports nutrition industries. Excited to get into all that good stuff. Miles, love your background and thanks for dropping by.
Thanks, Chris. Really stoked to be here, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, pleasure, mate. So take us through Hype Group. How did it all start? How did the agency come to be?
Yeah, so Hype Group, like you mentioned, has become a product development and I guess communications agency. That's why I like to call it, rather than just calling ourselves a marketing agency. And it's evolved a lot over time. But yeah, going back, I guess I started in the corporate world. I went to uni. I studied law. I then became a lawyer, and I practiced for about 6 years, and quickly found that it was really sort of, affecting my soul. It wasn't fulfilling me, and it just wasn't the life that I, sort of wanted for myself. And so I actually, within that process, within that 6 years, I started my own small boutique practice or firm with a couple of other lawyers and special counsel. And I had this idea that I was going to change the way that legal services were provided, because I didn't like the culture. I didn't like, the business of law that I had experienced over working for a few different firms. And so I was like, I'm going to, provide a better service. I'm going to do this the right way. And I did that for about a year, and, it worked, but it didn't fill that gap that I thought that it might. And within that process, one of our clients at the time was a fashion distribution company that looked after quite a lot of big, well-known brands. And they were looking for a national sales manager. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to just give this a crack?" And I, hadn't had any experience in sales previously, but it was just, the perfect moment that I was like, "Yes, let's do this." And a part of that role was overseeing the marketing department. And a lot of agency owners that are listening to this are going, "Man, this guy is not qualified for this." And I honestly wasn't. But, the things that I'd learned in my corporate background and experience transferred really well. And I'm naturally a bit of a creative person. I had spent, many years using cameras, using, video software, editing software, and all those sorts of things. So I was quite proficient at the time at taking photos and editing videos and things like that. Obviously not to the point where we've become, but it enabled me to use these skills and become passionate in this marketing space and wanting to create or look after cool brands that I could, manage the message for. So did that for about a year, and an opportunity came up. Although I was in the corporate space, I'm very entrepreneurial, and the marketing manager of that particular business and myself decided to go out and start filming and taking photos or producing content for brands in the health and fitness industry. And the reason for that was that my partner was a health and fitness coach, and my friend was a personal trainer, and they had a great presence to them. And so I would go to the gym with them and I'd film content of them. And we thought, hey, let's start a business around these guys. Like they clearly have influence. The health and fitness industry was booming, was starting to boom at the time. That influencer movement was really starting to boom. And so we built a website. We produced all of this content. We made it look really cool. And I invested, 24/7 of my life into understanding Facebook ads and digital, marketing and strategy and all of these sorts of things. So we started that. We started to get a few online sales, and we started to build that up. And then brands, which were much more established, started to see what we were doing and reached out to us and were like, "Hey, can you do the same thing for us?" And so it was such an organic process that we started to, I guess, form into what you'd call an agency and start producing content for all of these other more established brands. And that was about 6 years ago, and a lot has evolved since that point.
Yeah, right.
And now we're kind of here, and I guess there's, probably more to the story, but that in a nutshell is how it got started.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I can obviously tell from your background there and the setup in your studio that you have that creative flair. I know we spoke just before the shows about tattoos and martial arts and all that cool stuff that you're into. So obviously that was sort of the world that you were surrounding yourself with, and it's always interesting to see the agency owners that tend to find that passion and that purpose, that passion for free. It's when they can tap into something that they're genuinely curious and fascinated and interested about to weather the storms of doing the stuff to grow an agency, right? If you're interested in the subject matter, or you get to work with really cool people, it kind of gives you that impetus and that motivation on the days that maybe aren't so great to keep going. But and it also gives you that, it's the capability of playing the long game because you're genuinely curious. You tap into mastery. You can always get better and better and better at what you're doing. So it sounds like that's sort of the space that you finally filled that kind of void for passion and curiosity and purpose that you were looking for.
Yeah, that's a really, great way of putting it. And I guess like we went through the evolution that many agencies would go through where, sure, our passion was in health and fitness and wellness and sports nutrition. That was exciting to us. But we still, had to start building a business. And so we still needed to take on the odd lawyer or accountant or something that wasn't within our field of passion, I guess, or that we knew we would get fulfillment from. But, we're building a business. So, when a lawyer would reach out to us, we'd say, yeah, cool, we can do this for you. And it's a process, right? So over the years, you start building that business and, hopefully you get to the stage where you can start qualifying the clients that you accept. And, I can happily say that, 6 years, which isn't really a long time, but we're there now where we can qualify the clients that we want to work with, and we really have become an agency that wants to focus in the health and wellness sectors, and we really want to make a positive impact to the communities around us. And so, we've been able to get there. So I guess we always had that in the back of our heads, that this was the vision that we wanted to create, and this is the agency that we wanted to position ourselves as. At least we had some clients that kept us passionate and kept us motivated. And then we had sort of the grunt work clients where it's just like, yeah, sure, it's still the work you have to do, even though you don't want to do it. But I can safely say that we're pretty lucky where we are right now. We have so many great clients. We're really excited and, happy with the work that we get to do every day. So I guess that's the goal, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Is that it is a process, right? It's a process of, but I mean, the first part of that process is, as you said, you're identifying who is the ideal client. Like, what is this agency? Well, the person I want to work with. Who do I want to serve? Right now, I know what X is. Right, I know where I'm going. That's my ideal client. But also understanding that along the way, I've got a business to run. I've got to keep the lights on and maybe just pick up some work just to get the money in the door and keep the cash flowing. But that, as you're saying, you find that X point, that vision, that bigger thing that's pulling you forward, and having a few of those clients in your environment is enough to allow you to kind of reframe. So it's just like a mental shift, right? It's a reframing of the other clients. Are like, oh, this client sucks. I don't want to get this client on so I can keep the business going, so I can get more of the dream client. So it's then just that pure reframing, as you're talking about, can be really, really beneficial just to go. It's a sort of means to an end, right? So I'm doing this for the money. It's going to pay some wages. It's going to keep us going. So we're around. So next month we can go out and get more of the dream clients that we're trying to get. And they said over time that becomes more and more. You attract more and more and more the dream client that you actually want to work with and get to the place where you're at now.
So true, man. And I think it's just like a lot of people that start agencies are naturally sort of creative people, right? So maybe not as business focused. And, that's why it's amazing that there's people like you out there who are really helping people through the structures and processes that you need to run the business of an agency, because it's a business. And just like you're helping, your clients, with their businesses, you need to, focus on your own as well. So I can fully admit that I'm probably more of a creative person than I'm more creatively minded than financially minded. So I was able to get the business to a certain financial point, and I just hit a wall, basically. And it got to the point where I attracted my now partner in the agency, who was very much more business and financial minded. Also very good at branding and building businesses and products. And that was what actually eventuated to us becoming a product development agency as well, was through his experience. But what he was able to do was, I was able to obviously leverage his skills. He was able to leverage mine to create a more solid foundation for an agency and push past what I was able to do, just thinking creatively and not thinking about the actual inner workings of a business, because it's something that we really don't think about, right? I mean, it's like
you have to.
You're passionate about diving into this branding project and making this brand look amazing, and then you realize that you've just spent all of this time creating this amazing thing, but you've actually lost a lot of money, and it's not sustainable. So it's an evolution, man. It's a process, and I recognize that there was projects that I could do that fulfilled me and keep the passion burning. But then I also realized that there was, a bottom line that I needed to meet, or expenses that I needed to meet in order to grow. And I needed to take on whatever clients were coming, through the door at that time.
Yeah. And that foundational self-awareness is a massive piece as well. Just having that self-awareness to go, right, here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. I'm very well aware of what I'm great at and what I'd prefer to be doing all the time. But I also recognize that I have to do some of this stuff until there's a point that, as I said, either I meet somebody, I can bring someone in the business to do that for me, to do that with me, to take care of that part of the business, or partner up, right? Here's my strengths. I want to do this stuff. So who can I find to do the stuff that I'm not great at? Can I bring in a financial advisor? Can I bring in an accountant, a bookkeeper to just handle that stuff? Because they're going to be better at doing it. They're going to save time. It's going to be more effective than me sitting there trying to figure stuff out that I'm just not great at. So just having that initial self-awareness to go, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not. And I know that eventually I'm going to want to replace myself in the activities that I prefer not to be doing, or that I'm just not, that's not my mastery space.
Yeah, it's so important, right? I mean, I think it's so important to know what your strengths are and, where you really are falling down in terms of the business, or what's limiting your growth, I guess, in the business. And there's only so much that we can do as individual people. There's only, there really is only so much time that we have, although we can be very productive in that amount of time. But having other partners and things like that, in my experience, has been beneficial for me. Partners that complement my strengths, and but I also know that it depends on what vision you have for your agency or for your agency business. I mean, are you someone who just wants to be a bit more of a sole trader and, or a freelancer, or do you actually want to build more of a corporate structure? And, do you want to have a big team? Do you want to have a small team? I guess it's all things that you need to consider. And again, like you pointed out, it's a self-awareness thing. What do you see, as your vision for the future, and what sort of business do you want to run? And again, that'll probably change the more you get into it, right? I mean, I may have had a vision of, running a Gary V 1,000-person agency or something like that. But then when you actually start to meet other people who do run agencies of that size, you kind of look at it and go, oh, no, that's probably not what I want, but it might be what you want. So, and then, sometimes it might even be more profitable just to be a freelancer, and just run a really sleek boutique agency where you just have a couple of freelancers and you project manage that. I mean, I guess it comes down to self-awareness, what sort of life you want for yourself, what sort of business you want to, create. And then also, I think a lot of agencies don't think about an exit plan. I mean, they just build an agency, because they like the idea of it and complements their skills. But what's the end result? I mean, one thing my partner said, and I'm interested, to hear your thoughts, is if you get your agency to the point where it's paying you a salary, that's fantastic. And, if you can continue to pay yourself a salary and then dividends and things like that from the business, if it's profitable, fantastic. But you're not really going to get paid what you're worth and for what you sacrificed and the time and effort you put into it, unless you have some sort of exit event. That's when you really do actually make money, quote unquote. So, is that something that you've considered? Or maybe similar to what we've done with our agency is we've created product-based businesses. Our agency's become a bit of a business incubator. We have a few other businesses that we run because the resources and systems has allowed us to do that. It's, different structures and visions that you might have. So that's the fun of it too, right? Evolve it into whatever suits you.
A couple really interesting points. That said, knowing up front, what do I actually want to build? Do I want to build an 8, 9, 10 figure agency, or am I happy just earning $100,000, which I can do $100,000 salary a month and a year, and I can just do that with me and a couple of outsourced resources? Because an 8, 9, 10 figure agency, that's a whole different beast. It's a much bigger commitment. Some people are going to thrive in that environment. Some people might think that they want that because they've seen it on Instagram and they get the Instagram version of that and they think that's what they want, until they actually start to do it and go, I'm just not aligned to this. This is not who I want to be or what I'm great at. But you can get stuck. I'm so far into it now, I'm just going to keep pushing at it. I'm here and I said I was going to do it, and that's where burnout and exhaustion and overwhelm can start to happen, because you're just no longer aligned to the business is kind of going here and who you want to be from a soul perspective, or just your value system and your beliefs is kind of going this way, and you get this type of, and that's not a fun feeling. I mean, sort of you're getting pressured to go against who you naturally want to show up as, and so that can happen. So exactly right what you're saying. As if you feel that happening, or ideally as early as possible, decide, what do I actually want? How much money do I need? What, and obviously it's going to change over time, but is it $50,000 a year? Is it $100,000? Need $1 million a year? And then you build right to do that. I need an agency that's this size, and to do that, I'm going to need 30 staff or 3 staff. And you can kind of reverse engineer from there and really understand the undertaking.
Yeah, 100%. And, you touched on sort of burnout and all these sorts of things. I think it's running any business is really, really hard, and making it successful is really, really, really hard. And I think that people underestimate what it takes to create a successful business in terms of how hard it is. And burnout is prevalent. And, you see it a lot in agency world, especially in the more corporate, style agencies. Like, we've built an agency that's quite relaxed in our culture, and, we do think a lot about, the health and wellness of our own team. But even we're just, right now, I can, clearly say to you right now that I'm burnt out. I'm still happy and I'm passionate, I'm fulfilled with what I'm doing, but man, like, it's a grind right now. Even though things look really successful, there's going to be points where the balance is out of whack, and you've just had to work really hard because of, certain deadlines, or, clients that have come on board, or maybe you started other businesses. So there's always, a balance that you need to sort of monitor, and make sure, I guess, you don't go over the edge. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of agency owners go over the edge in that way.
Yeah, that's sort of a distinction between stress and burnout, whereas maybe right now, I mean, burnout's sort of a chronic thing, right? This is months and months and months and months of, almost leading into, you're getting into depression, and it's your character's changing who you are and how you show up. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that sort of happens in once you reach burnout. Stress and short-term stress is actually can be quite good. It can be beneficial, right? Yeah. So there's that. As agency owners, as creative businesses, you're always going to go through stressful stages where you've got a ton of deliveries. But like you said, if you can temper that and frame that with, I love what I'm doing, I'm curious about the work, I love the clients, I love where it's going, the money's good, that can temper that temporary stress. It's when that stuff starts to drop off and the workload increases and I'm not sure where I'm going and I'm starting to feel upset, I'm getting health issues. That's where, that months and months and months of burnout. Yeah. That's where you sort of get into that state of burnout. And like you said, you're bang on with, the burnout rates for staff in big agencies are 60 to 70, high 70%. Like it's not just a few people, it's most people that, and they're much more kind of churn and burn in that more corporate agency kind of setup. So it can be pretty horrendous, but finding that balance of, if you've got those core things of drive and curiosity and passion, that can temper those kind of temporary bouts of stress or sort of feeling like you're on the verge of burnout, but you hopefully come back off the peak a bit and you can recover and recuperate a bit so it doesn't become a chronic situation.
Definitely. It's something you need to, tackle as soon as you sort of feel it coming on, right? And I think that there's, as you go through business and you go through different burnout phases, you start to realize, hey, if I really just did take this day off, it's not actually going to affect as much as I think it is. And I've got this internal pressure and this demon sitting inside me saying, you need to get this done. But sometimes you just need to think about yourself. And, a lot of us in a service-based business, we're very, we like to give a lot of energy, especially to our clients. And we want to ensure that they're getting the best service, and we need to do this for our clients. And sometimes we need to think about ourselves and make sure that our cup has some water in it, has some fuel in it.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really important. And also understanding that that's your responsibility as a leader of, if you're the leader in your agency, because your influence and your energy and your vibe translates so much throughout, the walls of your agency, from the top 100%. Down. And so if people are feeling you're stressed, maybe your instructions will be short, maybe your feedback will be short, maybe you'll be projecting a lot of your own burnout on other people. And, it can just be this sort of cycle of, a dangerous cycle that you can find yourself in. So I think picking up on it as soon as possible is important, but then also not building a skill of laziness and going, anytime I feel a bit sick or anytime I feel like, this is a bit hard, taking the easy route and taking the day off, or, not getting a job done. I think understanding that balance, is really important, because you build a skill either way, right? You build a skill to saying, to being too lackadaisical about something. And then you build a skill to having that work ethic. But you've just got to make sure that, I guess everything we're talking about is a balance, right? It always comes down to that balance. Yeah.
Yeah. It's essentially, it comes down to how you structure your days. And ideally that you just like, sort of give the analogy of, don't wait until you've got high blood pressure to start eating better. But that's kind of what we do, right? If you just ate better and drank some water, you'd kind of prehab that condition wouldn't show up. Yeah, it's exactly the same with burnout, right? We wait until we're burnt out and stressed and go, okay, now I'm going to deal with it, rather than going, I'll prehab it, I'll structure my agency, I'll structure my days so that I'm preventing it from happening in the first place. And that's where you don't use that. That's how you find that balance in. How do I structure my everyday so I am getting that daily recovery that I need to come back the best I can be tomorrow, rather than waiting until I'm stressed and overwhelmed and burnt out and then going, I'll take a day off. So that sort of tactically is how you start to find that balance of build that stuff into the everyday and take breaks and be active with that self-care and bake that in, so that you're a little bit binary, right? I'm working, and when I'm working, I'm crushing it. I'm super effective, but then I'm also binarily switching off and taking time for me daily, weekly, monthly to get that regeneration back into the system.
Definitely. I think it's such a stupid part of like human nature where we just like feel this, we feel invincible until something happens and we get sick or whatever it is. And then we, respond to that. But we have to wait until that, bottom level, we hit that bottom level before we do something about it. It's such a funny thing, but I feel like it's just, human nature that we go through that. But I also think it's, and again, you're probably more of an expert in this space than I am, and I only have my personal experience to go by. But I feel like when you're starting a business or you're starting an agency, you just have to push the limit. And, the agency is you and everything you do, and all of your output is what's the momentum of your output is what's generating results. And you need a lot of results at the start to build a foundation and start building this machine. And so, I see, a lot of friends and things starting businesses, and at the start they're grinding and burning out and things like that. But it gets to a point where you become more experienced, you build processes, you build team members, you delegate tasks better. And it's not that you're not busy anymore. It's just that you are able to, like you said, structure your time better. And, you're able to find those moments more of, self-preservation, I guess, which is really important. Yeah. And the quicker you can get there, I guess, the
better. Yeah.
The better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a season for everything, right? And there is a season for hustle and grind and just getting shit done. But I always like to, again, kind of temper that with the felt sense of just smashing, grinding, hustling 24/7 can feel like you're actually being super, super, super productive. But biologically, there's actually a massive. So working a 70-hour week feels great over time, and there's this kind of big ramp up of productivity. But over time, it drops off massively compared to like a steady state 7-hour day. 7-hour day, 35-hour week, day in, day out, week out, outperforms over time significantly that 70, 80, 100 hours crushing. That's just, the biology just doesn't hold up over time. But there's absolutely, so again, it comes down to that structure. How can I be, if I'm going to work 7-8 hours a day, how can I get the most output from that time as possible through leverage, through team, through systems, all that kind of good stuff. And so that I can come back tomorrow at 100% rather than come back tomorrow at 20% and then coming back to 10% and then coming back at 5%, right? And that seems to be what we do.
That comes from that's clearly comes from someone who's experienced. And I think that, if someone is, let's use the word smart enough to approach that, they know they want to come in, they want to start an agency business, they reach out to you, Chris, and they say, cool, let's help me from the start and let's build these systems from the start. They won't go through the shit that probably you and I went through, going through those peaks and troughs. And then I think also it's wanting to get things fast. It's wanting to get results fast, right? So you just push yourself and push yourself and push yourself because you're like, I want really, quick term results. But then you realize, no, I'm actually in this for the long haul. And, it's not about how much I can get done in this next 3 months. I'm in this for the long haul. Let's, make sure that I'm structured and everything I'm doing is good for my health and wellness as well as my productivity, and understanding that when your health and wellness is a priority, you're going to find more success with your output and the actual results of your business rather than just sitting in front of a computer, not really doing much, but you feel like you are because your bum's in the seat. You're priding yourself on sitting in the seat rather than the actual output and results that you're getting.
Yeah. Love it. I think it comes back to something you said earlier, was business is hard anyway. Why make it harder than it has to be? It's all just the nature of it is going to be difficult. That's just what it is, right? It's a difficult undertaking. If you don't want it, just stay in a job, right? If you entrepreneurship, building a business, building a team, it's going to require you to up level and upskill in a whole range of stuff that you've just never had to look at, just tactically to build the business, but also internally, right? I always say that business is the best personal development program that you'll ever do, because when you step into business, and I'm sure be interested to see if this is what you experience, but all your personal shit comes up, right? Because now suddenly you're in this pressure cooker that you're stepping well outside your comfort zone, and that's where all your self-talk and all the bullshit and all the belief systems and all that stuff starts to percolate, because your system's going, hang on, this is uncomfortable. Oh, here's that memory from when you were 4, that thing that your mum said, okay, bang, now I've got money issues. I've got, right, with the line, resemble this person from my past. That stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And being prepared, completely unprepared for that a lot of the time in business. So it's hard enough. It's a hard enough game. So having some level of like, just don't make it harder than it has to be, because it's already going to be difficult. But difficult is great, because difficult builds capacity, it builds strength, it builds resilience and anti-fragility. So we want that, but that's the nature of it. It's going to be volatile. It's going to be uncertain. But let's cap it somewhere and not make it as more difficult than it has to be. So I guess that's more the perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. You do become very vulnerable when you start a business, and you don't have that protective layer that you do as an employee of a business. I guess the first thing that I'll say is, I think that, society has projected this stardom on, or this sort of, this sort of attraction towards starting a business and being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, without any consideration of the difficulty of such a task, the sacrifices that you need to make, and the actual longevity in such a task to reach some sort of success. Even in order to sort of pay yourself a salary, the same salary that you'd be getting if you were working as an employee of a business, is a hard task. So, are you the type of person that really should go out into business, or should you stay and try and make your way as a career person? And I don't think that should be frowned upon. I think it's fantastic. I think that if I personally had people to look up to in the places that I worked in the corporate space, I would have been more than happy to be a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or number 5 person. And I would have done I would have done the best that I could have to succeed in that space. I would have had a safe job. I would have had steady income. I would have been able to build the foundation of my life and family and houses and all these sorts of things. But for me, I didn't have people that I could look up to and was inspired by. So it forced me into this, I guess, entrepreneurial mindset and wanting to create something that was more fulfilling for me. And I wanted to make sure that whoever worked with me had that same fulfillment. But like you said, moving into it, once you go out there, you become vulnerable, and you start to learn so much about who you are as a person and what you truly believe in, and how you deal and respond to crisis and objection and rejection and things like that. When someone who you've built up in an agency for a long period of time leaves your agency to start a competitive agency, and it's the first time you've felt that, you start to learn who you are as a person, how you respond to something like that, and then you realize, oh shit, it happens. And you have clients who you might do your best for them, but for whatever reasons outside of your control, they something might go wrong and they might blame you for it. Or maybe you do something wrong and you stuff up. It's really understanding who you are, and it's building you to who you are going to become at the end of it. What a quick, or what a sort of accelerated journey of personal development running a business. It's jumping right into the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we build ourselves in the fire of chaos, and business is a pretty quick way to dive straight into a whole bunch of chaos. But for me, it's one of the best things you can ever do, because it does it. Scots you in that fire of, love all the examples you're giving there, all that subtle stuff, right? That being rejected by a client, or having a person that you've built up leave your company. It's human stuff, right? And brings up human emotion. And if you haven't experienced that before, it can trigger certain things. It's really, I mean, for me, it's really exciting and really interesting to work with people and sort of see how that stuff comes up and work through it. But that's the beauty that I found in building my agency, was all of that stuff came out, and it was a great personal development journey, and sort of got me into that side of personal growth and discovery and all that kind of good stuff. And to sort of wrap, I'd like to part of the initial question was about the sort of the exit part, and you sort of touched on it a little bit there. Understanding that this is a long game, right? So if I think this tends to happen a little bit less, where you build up the agency and Omnicom or Mediacom or WPP or someone comes in and gives you millions of dollars and acquires the agency. That can absolutely still happen. It's probably a little less frequent maybe than it used to be. But that's there's sort of two versions, right? That's the dream, right? You build it up, you sell the agency, you have that big exit event, you have a buyout, an earn out, whatever that is. That's one way. But the interesting thing is you can earn that same money by building a business and taking yourself out of the business, right? Yep. So an exit doesn't necessarily mean you sell the business and leave it. An exit could mean you just build the business and automate and systemize and replace yourself in the business, or the executive chairman or whatever. So you still have stake in the business. It's still paying you money. It's still paying you salary, but you're not involved in the day-to-day of the business. That over 5 to 10 years could make you the same money that you might get in that 3 to 5 year buyout time. So a sale isn't necessarily the only way to make that kind of money. But again, it comes down a lot of what we were saying up front, like, what do you want?
Yep.
Are you actually equipped for a buyout? A buyout and earnout can be kind of pretty devastating, right? There's an emotional attachment to selling your thing and having it rebranded and all that kind of stuff that can come with an exit event. Or do you want to just build something up and be the business owner and have it run without you and earn a salary off it and take that and invest in other stuff and move into another business or another type of thing? Or so understanding all of this stuff is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I hope that, people who haven't thought about that, who are listening to this now, start to think about it, and then obviously start directing themselves towards that future, because a lot of us are directionless. And although we might have somewhat successful businesses, what are we working towards? And I think working towards something is also sometimes the motivation you need to continue evolving and excelling. And at the end of the day, let's be real. I mean, running a service-based business isn't the easiest way to make money. So if your goal is to make money, it depends how much money we're talking and what sort of future you or vision you have for yourself. But it's not the easiest way. So think about why you're doing it and what you want to achieve from it. What you were saying just before about building a great machine where you can step out and replace, yourself and be on a board, or, all those sorts of things. That's great. That's awesome. Or maybe you will use it. You'll build a business to give yourself a wage to pay for your expenses in life, but then the ultimate goal is to use the resources that your agency provides to build product or other type businesses from that. And you have a vision for those businesses. There might be, liquid exit events and things from those businesses that you're looking to do. So there's so many ways to cut it up. And I think that's the exciting thing about business and life is there's no, there's no one road that you need to take. There's so many things, and you can mold the life and a vision to suit you. But I think it's important to think about it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, really insightful stuff. And just, again, as we said right up front, we're like self-awareness, right? What do I actually want? What do I genuinely want? Do I want a 10-figure agency, or do I just want to earn $75K a year and kind of chill out and days and enjoy my family? Like, what do I actually want? Super important. And that's going to dictate the type of agency, the type of service, how you automate, how many staff, what the exit event looks like, where are you going? And he said that is the stuff that then gives you that clarity and that confidence to show up and know the stuff I'm doing today is taking me to the thing that I want to go towards, rather than showing up and just doing stuff to build the business, but kind of not knowing where it's going. Two very different situations, doing the same work, same tactics, same techniques, but very different outcomes and very different felt sense. Absolutely. Man. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome stuff. to chat with you and sort of get your insights and a lot of value in this for the folks watching at home. And nothing is better than that personal felt experience of going through something and getting really genuinely having that insight because you've been through it, you've experienced it, and you found a way to overcome it. And that is something that the business, and particularly creative business, gives us that opportunity to grow ourselves and become better. And I'd love to see that you're going through that yourself and you come out better and bigger from that on the other side of it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that a lot. And I do hope that, your viewers and listeners do get something out of this. And, if they need more guidance, to reach out to people like you, Chris, to guide them along that journey, because, you're a bit of a cheat code because you've gone through it. So, I say there's no cheat codes and there's no blueprints that you can follow. And, you just need to, head down, bum up and test. But there is a bit of a cheat code. You can go to people who can become a mentor or a consultant or something who have gone through the same thing you're trying to go through and share with you the mistakes that you made so that they don't have to make it themselves, right? So, I would definitely,
Beautiful, love it. That is really essentially the only cheat code or hack in life is someone that's been there, done that can at least give you the guide rails and say, look, don't venture over here. There be dragons. Go this way. This is where the good wind blows this way. Let's make sure you're upwind and heading down that way. So amazing way to end. Thank you so much, Miles. If people want to find out more about you, where's the best place for them to come and find out about you?
I am loving LinkedIn at the moment. That is my favorite social media platform at the moment. Just having so many great conversations and networking with so many great people. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Miles Muecke, MILES MUECKE, I think. And if you want to chat about Hype Group, follow us on Instagram, hypegroup.co, or Facebook, and that's where you can find us.
Awesome. And I'll drop all those links in the show notes and everywhere that this is published, so you folks listening at home can smash a link and go get connected to Miles and start a conversation. Hey, thank you so much for dropping by. It's been an absolute blast. I love getting into this stuff, and I love to see sort of living examples of people to bringing this awareness into their agencies and kind of doing things the right way to look after themselves whilst looking after their businesses.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone for listening, and look forward to connecting with you further.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Miles. We'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.